The night pressed heavy on the forest, the kind of darkness that seemed alive, breathing with each whisper of wind. Rain poured through the branches, slicking bark and soaking the earth until it turned to mud beneath my bare feet. My lungs burned as I ran, every breath a ragged gasp, but stopping wasn't an option. Behind me, I could hear them. The wolves. Their growls rolled low, like thunder across the ground, circling, closing in. My heart hammered, wild as the storm raging above. I stumbled over roots, thorns slicing at my skin, but fear drove me forward. I'd been told never to wander into these woods at night, yet here I was, with nothing but the storm and shadows to keep me alive. Lightning flashed, and for a breathless instant, I saw them, eyes glowing yellow in the dark, teeth glistening with rain. The sound of their claws tearing through wet earth filled my ears. Closer now, closer with each heartbeat. My body wanted to collapse, to give in to the inevitability of being torn apart. But something deep inside me screamed to keep moving. The ground fell away beneath me and I tumbled down a slope, crashing hard into mud and stone. My arms ached, my knees throbbed, but before I could rise, they were there, snarling shadows at the edge of the clearing. One step closer and they would have me. My throat locked tight with terror, no scream escaping, just the raw silence of helplessness. And then he came. He emerged from the storm like it had carried him, tall, broad, his shirt clinging to muscle carved by survival itself. The rain slid down his chest where the fabric had torn, lightning tracing every curve of his strength. His eyes, silver, sharp, unyielding, fixed on the wolves with a heat that made them falter. I had never seen eyes like that, glowing not from beast, but from something deeper, something untamed. "Stay behind me," his voice cut through the storm, low and commanding, but not unkind. I couldn't move. My legs were trembling too hard, my breath trapped in my lungs. Yet when he stepped forward, every instinct inside me obeyed. I stumbled to my feet, pressing close behind him, his presence a shield. I didn't understand, but trusted completely. The wolves snarled, circling, their bodies rippling with hunger. He didn't flinch. He met their gaze with an energy that felt ancient, primal. The storm seemed to bend around him, lightning flaring, as if the sky itself knew who he was. With a growl that did not come from his throat, but from something far greater, he drove them back. They hesitated, ears pinned, before melting into the forest shadows, leaving only the rain and the pounding of my heart. Silence stretched. My hands shook as I clutched the fabric of his cloak, where it had brushed against me. Slowly, he turned, and those silver eyes met mine. The storm raged, but in that moment, it was as if everything else faded away. His gaze was fire and ice, all at once. Frightening, magnetic, impossible to look away from. "You're safe now," he said softly, though his voice carried the weight of command. I wanted to speak, to thank him, but no words came. My throat closed with the shock of still being alive. The rain plastered my hair to my face, dripping into my mouth with the taste of salt and storm, and still I couldn't look away from him. He offered his hand, his fingers, long and scarred, waited patiently until at last I placed my trembling ones in his. The moment his skin touched mine, warmth shot through me, burning away the cold of fear. It wasn't just comfort. It was something deeper, something that felt alive beneath my skin. The storm had brought him to me, and I knew, even then, that nothing would ever be the same. The rain did not ease. It roared against the canopy above, hammering the earth until streams of water coursed through the clearing. He didn't let go of my hand. Instead, he pulled me gently but firmly toward the shadow of an old stone ruin, half hidden by ivy and moss. I stumbled, my legs unsteady, but he kept me upright, his strength steady as the ground itself. Inside, the ruin was little more than broken walls and a crumbling hearth, but it gave shelter from the storm. A fire had once lived here. Charred wood still clung to the stone like memory. He knelt quickly, striking flint, and soon sparks leapt into fragile flame. Heat licked the damp air, chasing the chill from my skin. I sat close, my arms wrapped around myself, watching him in silence. His movements were sure, practiced, like a man who had built 100 fires in 100 storms. When he finally looked at me again, the light danced across his features. His jaw was sharp, his mouth unsmiling, but his eyes, those silver eyes, softened, if only slightly. "You shouldn't have been out there alone," he said. "I know." My voice was barely a whisper. I didn't mean to. The words caught in my throat, and I shook my head. I was running, and then my breath broke, and suddenly I was trembling again. His gaze held mine steady. "They won't touch you now." Something in his tone left no room for doubt. Not bravado, not arrogance, just certainty. I wanted to believe him, to let that strength hold me the way the fire was warming the ruin. I studied him in the flickering light. His shirt clung to him, torn open, rain still sliding across the ridges of muscle. A scar crossed his shoulder, pale against tanned skin. He looked carved from storm and stone, too powerful to be real. And yet, he was here, sitting across from me, the weight of his presence filling the ruined walls. "Who are you?" I asked before I could stop myself. For a long time, he didn't answer. The fire crackled softly, and the rain whispered against the stone. Finally, he said, "A man who doesn't belong anywhere. A man who hunts the wolves, so they don't hunt you." Something in me tightened. "But you were like them." His jaw shifted, but he didn't deny it. "Not like them." His gaze dropped briefly to the flames. "Never like them." The silence stretched. My heart beat too loudly in my chest, each thump echoing in my ears. I didn't know why I trusted him, why his presence was enough to keep the fear from swallowing me whole. Maybe it was the way he had stood against the wolves. Maybe it was the way his voice carried strength and sorrow in equal measure. Or maybe it was something deeper, something I couldn't name. When he finally moved closer, it wasn't sudden. He knelt slowly before me, his hand lifting with a hesitance that seemed at odds with his strength. His fingers brushed damp hair from my face, tucking it gently behind my ear. "You're shaking," he murmured. "I can't seem to stop." "Then let me hold you." The offer was simple, but the weight of it sank deep into me. For the first time all night, I felt my resistance falter. I leaned forward, and his arms wrapped around me, solid and protective. His warmth seeped through the cold, the scent of rain and smoke clinging to his skin. My cheek pressed against his chest. and beneath the steady rhythm of his heart, my trembling eased. The storm outside raged on, but in the circle of his arms, I found silence. I didn't know him. I didn't know his name, his story, or what shadow followed him. But I knew this. In that ruined shelter, with firelight flickering and thunder rolling, I had found something I hadn't known I was searching for. And when his lips brushed the crown of my head, the smallest of touches, my breath caught, because it felt like the beginning of something I could never undo. His arms stayed around me long after the fire had settled into a steady glow. The ruin was quiet, except the soft crackle of flame and the steady drip of rain through cracks in the roof. My body still hummed with leftover fear, but under his touch, it shifted into something else. An ache I didn't understand, a longing that made my skin feel too small. He shifted slightly, and I lifted my head to meet his gaze. His silver eyes caught the light like the edge of a blade, but there was no sharpness in them now, only a searching, almost pained intensity. "You should rest," he said softly. I shook my head. "If I close my eyes, I'll see them again." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might look away. But instead, he reached out, cupping my face with one hand, his thumb brushing lightly across my cheek. The touch was careful, as though he feared I might break. "You're safe," he said, the words rough, like they had been dragged out of him. "As long as I breathe, no one will harm you." Something in me unraveled. My lips parted, but no words came. His mouth and the space between us seemed to shrink without either of us moving. I could feel his breath, warm, unsteady. My heart raced, not from fear, but from something deeper, something terrifying in its own way. I had never been this close to anyone, never felt this much awareness. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I whispered. He drew in a slow breath, his hand trembling faintly against my cheek. "Because I shouldn't." And then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle, not at first. It was fierce, as if he had been holding back something unbearable. But then, almost immediately, he softened, his lips brushing mine with aching tenderness, like he wanted to memorize me in the fragile quiet of the storm. Heat rushed through me, overwhelming, dizzying. My hands clutched at him, pulling him closer. His body was solid beneath my touch, warmth seeping into me where rain had left me cold. His other hand slid to the back of my neck, holding me there as if he couldn't bear the thought of let go. When he finally pulled back, his breath was ragged, his forehead pressed to mine. "I shouldn't have done that," he whispered, voice raw. But I was already shaking my head, my lips chasing his. "Then don't stop." The storm outside surged, thunder cracking as though the sky itself bore witness. But inside the ruin, there was only heat, only fire, tracing the curve of my back, mine tangled in his damp hair. Every touch burned away the fear. Every kiss replaced terror with something far more dangerous: trust. And when the flames in the hearth flared, I knew whatever had begun tonight would change everything. The storm outside softened to a steady rain. But inside the ruin, the air thickened, heavy with heat and something unnamed. His mouth returned to mine, slower this time, deeper, like he was afraid to rush what had already begun. His hand slid down the curve of my spine, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us, until my heart beat in rhythm with his. My breath caught when his lips left mine and found the hollow of my throat. The brush of his teeth sent a shiver racing through me, sharp and sweet all at once. My fingers dug into his shoulders, clinging as though the world might fall away if I let go. "You don't know what you're asking for," he murmured against my skin, his voice husky, strained. "Then show me," I whispered, surprising even myself. Something inside him broke. I felt it in the way his body pressed me against the wall, in the way his hands gripped me as though I were both fragile and the only thing anchoring him to this world. His breath was hot against my ear. "You don't understand what I am." I tilted his face back to mine, searching those silver eyes that burned with secrets. "I don't care." And then there was no more hesitation. The fire crackled, the rain whispered against stone, and our bodies found each other in a rhythm older than words. Every touch was both a question and an answer. Every kiss a promise. Neither of us dared speak aloud. When at last we collapsed together, tangled in warmth and exhaustion, silence filled the ruin. His arm draped over me, heavy and protective, his chest rising and falling against my back. I should have felt afraid, uncertain of what had just happened. But instead, for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt whole. I let my eyes close, listening to the steady drum of his heartbeat. In that fragile, fleeting moment, I believed him when he had said I was safe. What I didn't know then was how quickly that safety would shatter. The morning came wrapped in pale mist, soft light spilling through cracks in the ruin's roof. I woke to the warmth of his arm still around me, his chest rising steadily against my back. For a heartbeat, I allowed myself to believe the night hadn't been a dream, that he would still be here when I turned to him, that this fragile cocoon of safety would last. But when I shifted, his eyes were already open, watching me with a silence that felt heavier than words. There was something final in the way his hand brushed my hair from my face, tender but distant, like a farewell disguised as affection. "You should forget me," he said quietly. The words pierced sharper than claws. I sat up, clutching the blanket around me, searching his face. "After last night, after everything?" His jaw clenched, the muscles shifting beneath his skin. He didn't look away, but the storm in his eyes told me he wanted to. "I never should have touched you, never should have brought you into my world." "Then why did you?" My voice trembled, not from fear, but from the ache of being pulled close, only to be pushed away. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood, gathering his shirt from the floor, pulling it over the planes of his body, as though clothing himself in armor. "Because I couldn't stop myself," he admitted finally, his voice rough. "And that weakness will destroy you if I stay." I rose too, my bare feet cold against the stone, my heart colder still. "You think walking away will protect me?" His silver gaze met mine, and for a moment I saw it. Pain, regret, a battle waged inside him that I couldn't name. Then he turned, moving toward the ruin's broken archway. "One day, you'll understand." The mist swallowed him as he left, his figure fading into the gray morning like a phantom. I stood frozen, the blanket slipping from my shoulders, the fire long gone cold. The silence that followed was unbearable, heavy with everything unspoken. My hands pressed to my stomach without thought, and though I didn't yet know it, life had already begun to stir within me. Life that would bind me to him forever, no matter how far he ran. And so, in the quiet aftermath of love and abandonment, I was left with only questions, a hollow ache, and the seed of a destiny neither of us could escape. The days that followed blurred together, each one colder than the last. At first, I told myself he would return, that the silver-eyed stranger who had saved me, who had held me as if I were more than just a lost soul, could not simply vanish. But the ruin stayed empty. The forest paths whispered only with the voices of wind and crows. It was the sickness that came first, a rolling nausea that stole my mornings, a fatigue that weighted my bones no matter how much I rested. Then the cravings, strange and insistent, as if my body belonged to someone else. I pressed my palm to my stomach, dread and wonder coiling together in my chest. The truth unraveled slowly, but once it did, there was no denying it. Life stirred within me, his life, our life. A spark born of a single night when I had believed I was safe, when I had believed I mattered. My breath caught each time I felt the faintest flutter, fragile but real, a reminder that he had left more than just silence behind. Fear clawed at me as much as hope did. I had no one to turn to, no family who would understand, no men to stand by me, and worse, whispers. Carried in the forest, eyes gleamed from the shadows at night, wolves trailing me as though they sensed what grew inside me. Their howls split the darkness, eerie and accusing, claiming what was mine as though it belonged to them. I wrapped my arms around my belly one night as the chorus rose, shivering in my small bed. "You're mine," I whispered fiercely into the dark. "Not theirs, not anyone's but mine." Yet, deep inside, I knew it wasn't just mine. The child was part of him too, the alpha who had disappeared into the mist, leaving behind a piece of himself he might never know. And though I fought to be strong, though I tried to bury my longing beneath survival, one truth haunted me with every passing day. He had left me, but the bond between us had not been broken. Somewhere I felt it, like a thread pulling taut in the distance, binding us still. Winter melted into spring, and the months passed like shadows stretching longer across the walls of my solitude. My body changed, slow and undeniable, carrying the weight of both hope and fear. Each flutter, each kick, made the absence of him sharper, proof of what he had left behind without even knowing. The nights were the worst. The wolves grew bolder, their howls circling closer, their yellow eyes sometimes glinting just beyond the tree line. I would sit awake, clutching my swollen belly, whispering promises to the life inside me. "I'll protect you. I'll keep you safe, no matter what." The truth pressed heavy against my ribs. I was only one woman, fragile and tired, against a world that wanted to claim what was mine. Vision as I pressed him to my chest. Half wolf, half human, all mine. He nuzzled weakly against me, a soft sound breaking from his lips that was neither cry nor growl, but something between. I kissed his damp hair, whispering through sobs, "You're perfect. You're everything." But the wolves did not let me keep that moment. Their howls rose louder that night, closer, insistent, as if they could smell his birth in the storm. Shadows moved outside the cabin, claws scratching at the wood. My heart pounded as I cradled my newborn tighter. "They know," I whispered, rocking him as fear clawed up my throat. "They know you're not just mine." And for the first time since he left, I wished with everything inside me that he would return, that the alpha who had saved me once would come again, before it was too late. But the door never opened. The storm raged on. And I was left to face the night with only the fragile warmth of my son against my chest, praying the bond I had felt between us still held strong enough to bring him back. The storm passed, but its echoes lingered in my bones. Each day bled into the next, and though my body ached from sleepless nights, I clung to the small bundle that was my son. He grew fast, faster than seemed natural. His eyes sharp, his tiny teeth showing sooner than they should have. Sometimes when he cried, the sound curled like a howl, and it sent shivers through me. Still, he was my light. In the mornings, I'd carry him outside, where the dew clung to the grass like pearls. He would reach his little hands toward the sky, silver eyes reflecting the sun, and I would almost believe the world wasn't watching us. Almost. But the wolves were never far. Their shadows haunted the edges of the forest, their howls a constant reminder. They prowled closer each week, circling the cabin, scratching at my resolve. They wanted him. I saw it in the way their eyes glowed when they caught me watching from the window. The night it happened, the air felt heavy, as though the forest held its breath. My son, barely a year old, yet taller, stronger than he should have been, slept restlessly, whimpering against my chest. I hushed him, rocking gently, but the scratching started again. This time, louder, more insistent. Then the door shuddered. Splinters rained as claws raked against the wood. My heart thundered. I grabbed the iron poker from the hearth, though my hands trembled around its weight. The door burst inward. Shadows filled the cabin. Wolves, too many to count, their eyes gleaming like molten gold. My scream tore through the silence as I clutched my child tighter. "He belongs to us," one growled, voice thick, half human, half beast. Its words rattled the walls as much as its claws did. "Born of our blood, not yours." "No!" I pressed my back against the wall, fire poker raised, though I knew it wouldn't save us. My baby whimpered, his tiny fists clutching at my dress. "And you can't take him!" The wolves surged closer, teeth bared, hunger in their eyes, not just for flesh, but for claim. I tried to fight, swung the poker with everything in me, but their strength was overwhelming. Rough hands and snarling muzzles dragged me down, tearing at my arms, my hair. My baby's cry split the night. I screamed his name, screamed until my voice broke. Then, through the chaos, a sound cut the air like thunder. A snarl, deeper, fiercer, one that froze even the wolves. Silver eyes blazed in the doorway. He was back, the Alpha, and the world seemed to shatter as his gaze fell on me, on the child in my arms, on the monsters who had come to take what was ours. The cabin froze in the weight of his presence. The wolves snarled low, restless, but none dared take another step. His chest heaved, bare and scarred, breath misting in the cold night air. Silver eyes, those same eyes I had once lost myself in, burned with a rage that was almost feral. He moved, a blur of muscle and fury, tearing the first wolf away from me as though it were nothing more than kindling. Bones cracked under his grip, a scream echoing as the creature fell, lifeless, to the floor. The others recoiled, their hunger faltering in the face of his dominance. I pressed my baby closer to my chest, my tears blurring the chaos. The Alpha fought like fire made flesh, every strike of his body a storm unleashed. Snarls, yelps, the thud of bodies against wood and stone. Yet through it all, his gaze would flick to me, to us, as though anchoring himself in the sight of what he was fighting for. Then silence. Broken bodies lay scattered across the cabin floor. The survivors fled into the night, their howls fading into the distance, vowing revenge. I trembled, clutching the baby, unsure whether to reach for him or recoil. His eyes met mine at last, burning, searching, and for the first time in a year, I saw something break through that cold silver light. Not anger, not fury, but recognition. His gaze dropped to the child, and his breath hitched. The baby shifted in my arms, tiny fingers curling in the air, and for the briefest moment, the Alpha's hand twitched as if he wanted to reach for him. Then, just as quickly, his jaw hardened. His voice came out low, raw, as though torn from somewhere deep inside. "What have you done?" The words struck harder than any blow. My knees nearly gave out, my heart shattering under the weight of them. I protected him, I whispered, clutching my son tighter, my voice shaking but fierce. I protected what you left behind. His face hardened, torn between fury and something softer he could not name. And in that silence, thick with hurt and truths unsaid, the bond between us pulled taut once more, unbreakable, undeniable, and dangerous. The baby whimpered, a fragile sound that cut through the silence, sharper than any blade. His tiny fist brushed against my chin, seeking warmth. Whispering a lullaby I'd taught myself through nights of fear. The Alpha's breath faltered. His fists, still bloodied from the fight, loosened at his sides. For a moment, his hard gaze softened, his lips parting as though words wanted to come, but couldn't. "You don't understand," I said, my voice trembling, yet steady, with something stronger than fear. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't plan it, but he's here. He's ours, and I won't let anyone, wolf or man, take him from me." His eyes flicked to the boy again, silver clashing with the child's strange, shifting gaze. Half wild, half human, carrying the weight of both worlds. He inhaled sharply, as if struck by the truth of it. But then he turned his head away, jaw tight, as though the sight burned him. "I never meant for you to carry this burden," he muttered, voice thick, breaking at the edges. "It's not a burden," I shot back, clutching the baby closer. "He is my light in the dark, even when you left. Even when the wolves circled, he mere reason to fight." The baby's cry rose again, fuller this time. A small, desperate wail. I swayed him gently, brushing tears from my cheeks with the back of my hand. The alpha's entire body stiffened. Then, slowly, he stepped forward, hesitant, as if nearing a fire that could either warm or consume him. "Let me." His voice broke low. "Let me hold him." Every instinct screamed at me to shield my child. Yet something in his tone, in the way his eyes no longer looked like steel, but storm clouds ready to break, made my arms loosen. My breath caught as I lifted the baby, hesitating before placing him carefully into the alpha's waiting arms. The sight struck me deep. This man, this fierce creature, cradling something so small against the vastness of his chest. The baby blinked up at him, the cries fading into soft breaths, as though recognizing the blood that tied them. For the first time, the alpha looked utterly undone. His lips trembled, his eyes protectively around the tiny body. "He's mine," he whispered, almost too quiet to hear. "No," I said gently, stepping closer, pressing my palm against his chest. "He's ours." The bond surged then, fierce and undeniable, threading through the three of us like fire and storm, a tether stronger than rejection, stronger than fear. But even as the warmth of it spread, shadows moved beyond the cabin walls. The wolves were not gone. They were waiting. My blood ran cold. The alpha's head snapped toward the door, his jaw tightening. "They've found us." I stood, clutching his arm. "You said they'd stay away. You promised." "I promised to fight," he corrected, his voice low, rough. His eyes flicked to the child. "But they won't stop. Not now. They've scented him." The baby stirred as if the wolf's cries reached even his small ears. I pressed my lips to his forehead, whispering comfort that was more for me than him. The alpha set the child back into my arms, then rose to his full height, shoulders squared like a wall between us and the danger beyond. His eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, silver catching flame. "You'll stay behind me," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. But before I could answer, the cabin door shuddered, claws raking against the wood. A growl rumbled through the night, deeper, older, hungrier than the others. "They want him," I whispered, my chest tightening until it hurt. "They'll never touch," the alpha growled, stepping forward. His whole body radiated that protective force, a storm coiled to break. The door rattled again, harder this time, splinters flying. My arms tightened around the baby, and a thought pierced through the terror like lightning. What if he can't fight them all? What if I lose them both? The alpha glanced back, just once, silver eyes blazing with something more than fury. It was a vow, silent but unbreakable. "I will not let them take you." And then the door gave way. The wolves poured in, shadows with teeth, eyes burning in the dark. The alpha met them head-on, a roar tearing from his throat, a force so raw it shook the walls. Claws and fangs clashed, the cabin exploding into chaos. I held the child tight, pressed against the corner, heart hammering with every sound of tearing wood, of snarls, of his grunts of pain. The fire threw sparks across the room, painting everything in flashes of gold and red. And in that madness, I realized something that chilled me to my core. The wolves weren't just here to kill, they were here to claim. The cabin shook under the weight of snarls and claw strikes. The alpha's body moved like fury itself, silver eyes blazing as he tore through the wolves that lunged at him. Blood splattered the wooden floor, some his, some theirs. I couldn't tell anymore. Then a shadow broke past him, a wolf, larger than the rest, black as midnight, with eyes that gleamed cruel red, darted toward me. My back hit the wall, my arms wrapping tighter around the child. The baby wailed, his cries piercing through the storm of violence. "No, stay away!" My voice cracked, but the beast only growled, circling, its hot breath filling the air. The alpha roared, breaking free of the fight for just a heartbeat. But another wolf lunged at him, dragging him back into the chaos. He couldn't reach me, not in time. The black wolf prowled closer, its muzzle inches from the baby's face. I could smell its hunger, hear its low rumble vibrating through the floorboards. My chest ached as I braced myself, ready to shield my child with nothing but my body. And then it happened. The baby's cries shifted, turned into something deeper, wilder, a sound that didn't belong to a human throat. His tiny hands trembled, claws, real claws, glinting in the firelight. For a heartbeat, his eyes flashed gold. The wolf stopped, stunned, head cocked as though recognizing one of its own. "No," I whispered, tightening my hold, fear and awe crashing together inside me. "Not you, not like this." The alpha's roar tore through the room, breaking the moment. He slammed into the black wolf with a force that rattled the walls, sending it sprawling across the cabin. Blood streaked his arm, his chest heaving with the effort, but his body stayed between us, unyielding. He looked at me then, not at the wolves, not at the blood, but at me, trembling in the corner with our child half shifted in my arm. His eyes softened for just an instant, even as blood trickled from his mouth. "They'll never have him," he growled, "or you." But I could see it, the way his knees nearly buckled, the way his breath rattled. He was hurt, badly, and the wolves knew it too. They circled tighter, snarling, waiting for him to fall. I clutched the baby to my chest, tears burning hot. "Don't you dare leave us." The alpha swayed, then bared his teeth in a smile that was more promise than hope. "I'll die before I do." And then, bleeding and broken but unyielding, he threw himself back into the fight. The alpha fought like a storm given flesh, but I could see the slowing of his movements, the way his strength leaked out with every drop of blood. He was breaking, and if he fell, there would be nothing between me and the wolves. The black one rose again, lips curling back in a snarl, its gaze fixed not on him this time, but on the child. My body tensed, nowhere left to go. The walls trembled with the growls surrounding us, and then something inside me shifted. A heat I had never known surged through my chest. Not fire, but something deeper, like a tether snapping free. My arms tightened around my baby, my voice breaking the air in a scream that carried more than fear. It was raw, guttural, defiant. something that made even the circling wolves falter. The black wolf hesitated, ears flattening as if it had heard more than just a woman's cry. My heart pounded as the room seemed to still, the storm outside rattling the windows, the firelight flickering wild shadows across the walls. The alpha's head turned sharply toward me. His silver eyes widened, not in fear, but in recognition. "You!" his voice rasped, choked with blood. "Omega, your bond." The words barely left his lips before the wolves lunged again. But this time, when they came, something unseen pushed back. A ripple of force burst from me. Invisible. Wolf yelped, thrown against the far wall with a crack. Another staggered, whining, as if something had burned it without flame. I gasped, clutching the baby, trembling with the echo of what I had just done. My body ached with it, my vision swimming, but I felt connected to him, to the child, to something greater, ancient, running through my veins like lightning. The alpha's expression changed, fierce pride cutting through his pain. "You found it," he whispered, before turning back to the pack with renewed fire. And for the first time, I wasn't just someone he was protecting. I was fighting beside him. The wolves regrouped, snarls weaving together like a hymn of fury. The black one stepped forward, its eyes never leaving mine. For a moment, it looked almost human, something cunning, burning behind the beast's gaze. "You don't belong to him," it seemed to say in the silence between growls. "You belong to us." My stomach turned cold, brushing against my skin, and warmth returned like a spark against winter. I shifted my grip, standing taller, though my body shook. The alpha dragged himself upright, blood streaking his jaw, his chest heaving like a furnace. He looked at me, not at the wolves. Me. His lips moved with a single word I felt more than heard. Mate. The world narrowed to that one truth. My heart stuttered, then settled into a rhythm that matched his. My body ached with exhaustion, but my soul recognized him, claimed him. The tether I had felt earlier snapped tight, unbreakable, blazing like fire through the dark. The wolves lunged as one, a blur of fur and teeth. But this time, the alpha and I moved together. His body met theirs with brute strength, tearing through them, while from me surged the force I hadn't known I carried. Waves of unseen power rippling out with each breath, knocking the beasts back. Painting the room in gold and crimson. One by one, the wolves faltered. Some slunk back, whining, their courage broken. Others lay still where they had fallen. Only the black wolf remained, crouched low, fury and hunger flashing in its eyes. It lunged straight at me. I braced, clutching the child. But before it reached me, the alpha slammed into it with a roar that shook the walls. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of blood and fur, claws raking, teeth snapping. The black wolf's jaws closed around his shoulder, tearing deep. And for a heartbeat, my scream drowned everything. But the alpha didn't let go. With a final surge of strength, he twisted, seizing the wolf by its throat. Silver eyes blazed as his voice thundered. She is mine. He is mine. We are bond, forged in blood, bound in soul. You will not take them. The crack of bone split the air. The black wolf went limp. Silence followed, thick and absolute. The cabin settling around us like it had been holding its breath. The alpha staggered, blood pouring from too many wounds, his body swaying. I caught him as best I could with one arm, the child still pressed against my chest. "You're bleeding too much," I whispered, tears spilling freely now. "Don't leave me. Not after this. Not after—" His hand cupped my face, trembling but firm, his eyes burning into mine. "I can't leave. Not from you. Not anymore." And in that moment, with the scent of smoke and blood and rain clinging to us, I knew the truth neither of us could deny. We were bound by pain, by survival, by love neither of us had asked for, but both had found. The cabin felt impossibly still after the chaos. My heartbeat was the loudest sound, thudding in my ears as I lowered him carefully to the rug near the fire. His skin burned under my touch, damp with sweat and blood, but he still managed to hold my gaze. "You should rest," I whispered, fumbling for the torn edge of a blade. To press against his shoulder. My hands shook so badly I could barely tie the knot. "You'll bleed out if—" He caught my wrist, his grip weak but unyielding. "Look at me." I did, though my vision blurred with tears. "You were brave," he said, voice hoarse, every word pulled from somewhere deep. "Braver than anyone I've ever seen. That power, it came from you." I swallowed hard. I didn't understand what he meant. All I knew was the warmth that had surged from me when the wolves closed in, the way it had wrapped us in light. I shook my head. I don't even know what that was. I just needed to protect you, to protect him. My arms tightened around the baby, who had fallen back into soft, trusting sleep. The alpha's lips curved faintly, the ghost of a smile, even through pain. The bond. It awakens what's hidden. You are not just mine. You are more than you know. His words. I found myself leaning closer, wiping the blood from his jaw with trembling fingers. "You should hate me," I murmured. "You found me broken. You saw what they did. You saw." My throat closed around the memory, the shame. "You saw too much." His hand rose again, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The gentleness of it unraveled me. "I don't see your brokenness," he said, steady now despite his pain. "I see your strength. I see the woman who stood against a pack to protect a child. Who stood with me when I should have been fighting alone. That's what I see. And I will keep seeing it until you believe it too." The fire crackled softly between us, its glow painting his skin gold. I couldn't speak. My throat ached with everything unsaid. I leaned down before I could stop myself. His lips met mine, tasting of salt and copper, fierce and desperate. The kiss was not gentle. It was survival, raw and unrestrained. Like apart, breathless. His forehead rested against mine. "Stay," he whispered, almost a plea. "Stay with me. No more running. No more alone." Tears slipped down my cheeks, but for the first time, they didn't feel like sorrow. They felt like release. "I'll stay," I whispered back, "as long as you'll have me." The baby stirred, letting out a soft cry, and we both turned toward him. The alpha's expression shifted, tender, almost reverent, as he looked at the tiny face nestled against my chest. "He's ours," he said simply. Something inside me cracked open then, like a locked door giving way. Fear and hope tangled together in my chest, but for the first time, hope was stronger. Outside, the storm finally broke. The wind calmed, the rain slowed, and through the fractured window, the moon cast a silver glow into the room. It felt like a blessing. The storm had passed, leaving the night washed clean. The forest outside shimmered with raindrops clinging to every branch. Inside the cabin, the fire had burned low, glowing embers breathing warmth into the stillness. I stood at the narrow balcony, arms wrapped around the baby, the cool air carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. Behind me, I heard him stir, slow, deliberate movements, as though every muscle protested. Yet he rose. He came to stand beside me, shirtless, his skin bandaged, the scars of battle still raw, but his presence steady, grounding. "You should be resting," I murmured. But the words lacked force. I wanted him here. He leaned on the wooden rail, gaze lifting to the moon. Its light etched his profile in silver, strong and unyielding, and yet softened by exhaustion, by something deeper. "The bond won't let me rest until I know you're safe," he said quietly. Safe. The word trembled through me. I wasn't sure I had ever been safe. Not truly. Not until now. The baby whimpered, and I rocked him gently, pressing my cheek to his soft hair. The alpha's eyes followed the movement, and for a lull, moment, silence stretché par nous, rempli de tout ce que nous nous disions. Vous avez peur, il lit finement. Je pleurais, ma goitre-rêture, de ce qui vient après, de perdre encore. Sa main examine l'eau. La chaleur de son touche m'a des mains. Il m'a stabilisé. La peur ne vous fait pas dégueu. Cela veut dire quelque chose de digne. C'est essentiel, soleil, dans ma poitrine. My fear wasn't just mine anymore. It was tied to him, to this fragile child, to the strange and impossible family we had become. I turned, searching his face. "And what about you? You carry scars I can't see. You hide pain behind silence." His jaw flexed, the moonlight glinting off the hardness in his eyes. For a heartbeat, I thought he wouldn't answer. But then, softly, "My silence was my shield. But with you." He broke off, exhaling sharply, as if the words cost him. "With you." Silence fil d'huile. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. The distance between us had become unbearable. My free hand touched his chest, where his heart beat hard beneath warm skin. He covered my hand with his, the weight of it an anger. Something shifted then, like a door opening, like breath filling lungs after too long underwater. The bond wasn't just a pull. It was a revelation. "You don't have to carry it alone," I whispered. His eyes closed, lashes dark against his cheek. When they opened again, they were softer, vulnerable, in a way that made my heart ache. "And you don't have to heal alone." The baby stirred again, and the alpha reached. hesitating only briefly before taking him into his arms. The sight rooted me where I stood, the fierce warrior cradling something so fragile, so small, as if he were holding the world itself. For the first time, I saw not only the Alpha who had saved me, but the man capable of building something new with me. The moon watched silent, light weaving around our bodies, binding us in quiet promise. And for a fleeting, impossible moment, I believed in peace. The peace didn't last. The night carried a strange stillness, one that pricked at the edges of my nerves. The forest was too quiet. No owls, no rustling leaves, no distant howl. Just silence, stretched thin like glass about to shatter. The Alpha must have felt it too. His body tensed, shoulders rigid, as he shifted the baby carefully back into my arms. "Stay here," he murmured, voice clipped, edged with warning. My heart hammered. "What is it?" He didn't answer. His eyes were already scanning the tree line, muscles coiled like a predator waiting to strike. And then it came. A howl, long and mournful, rolling across the valley like thunder. Another answered it, closer, sharper. Shadows moved between the trees, figures slipping through the moonlight, too many to count. Wolves. Their eyes gleamed, catching the silver light, hungry, relentless. "They found us," I whispered, clutching the child tighter against my chest. The Alpha stepped in front of me, his body a wall of protection. His voice was low but steady, the sound of command born into his bones. "They won't take you, or him." The fire inside the cabin crackled weakly, the last embers glowing. I wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to the fragile peace we had tasted only moments before, but dread coiled inside me. They had claimed my child once before. What if they tried again? What if? The wolves broke the tree line, snarling, circling, their forms blurred between beast and shadow. My breath caught. I could feel their malice, their hunger. The Alpha growled, the sound so deep it rattled through the ground beneath my feet. His body shifted, thighs burning gold, claws slicing from his fingers. Every inch of him bristling with raw, feral power. I had seen him fight before, but now, standing between. Me and the pack, he was something more. Not just an Alpha, not just a man. He was storm and fire, protector and destroyer. The embodiment of everything I feared and everything I craved. One of the wolves lunged. The Alpha met it mid-air, claws tearing, teeth bared. The night erupted into chaos, the clash of bodies, the snarl of beasts, the hiss of blood hitting the earth. I backed against the cabin wall, clutching the baby, every muscle trembling. My mind screamed at me to run, but my heart rooted me there, unable to leave him. Not again. The baby whimpered, sensing the danger, and I rocked him, whispering broken comforts I didn't believe. It's all right. He won't let them take you. He won't. Another wolf slammed into the balcony rail, splintering wood. I gasped, stumbling back, but before it could reach me, the Alpha ripped it away, tossing its body like it weighed nothing. His voice thundered, not just in sound, but in them fall. The wolves hesitated. Even in their fury, even in their hunger, they knew the truth of an alpha's claim. Still, they circled, testing, unwilling to yield. Bloodied, panting, he turned his head just enough to look at me. Our eyes met, his blazing with power, mine wide with fear. And in that instant, something passed between us. A vow, unspoken but absolute. He would not let them win, not while he still drew breath. The battle stretched on, a blur of snarls and blood. The Alpha moved like a storm unleashed, each strike precise, brutal, unstoppable. Wolves lunged from every side, but he met them all, his body a shield, his fury a weapon. Yet even storms weaken. I saw the lines of strain in his shoulders, the slowing in his movements as exhaustion began to creep in. Blood, his and theirs, darkened the soil, metallic on the air. The pack pressed closer, sensing the crack in his strength. Fear clawed at my chest. If he fell, we desperate, carrying into the night. For a heartbeat, the pack stilled, eyes turning toward me. My arms tightened around the baby, his small cries piercing through the chaos. "This child is not yours." My voice trembled, but rose stronger, firmer. "He belongs to me." To him. The Alpha's head snapped toward me, eyes wild, golden. For a moment, I thought I had made a mistake, drawn their attention to the very thing they wanted. But something else shifted in that moment. The bond. It flared between us, raw and undeniable. I felt it ripple through my veins. A thread of light pulling taut, binding us together. His strength surged and mine steadied. The Alpha roared, the sound shaking the ground itself. He rose, taller, fiercer, as though the bond itself fed him. The pack faltered, their unity cracking, their hunger blunted by something stronger. Fear. One by one, they slunk back into the trees, their howls retreating into the distance. The clearing fell into silence once more, broken only by the ragged sound of his breathing. He staggered, bloodied and bruised, but still standing. My knees nearly gave out in relief. The baby quieted against my chest, as if he too understood the danger had passed. The Alpha turned to me. His face was smeared with dirt and blood, his chest heaving. But his eyes, those burning gold eyes, were fixed only on me. "You called to me," he rasped, voice raw. And I came. Tears spilled down my cheeks, unstoppable. "You always do." He crossed the distance between us in two unsteady strides, cupping my face with bloodied hands. His touch was rough, trembling, but his gaze held nothing but reverence. He bent his forehead to mine, and for the first time in so long, I felt safe. The storm had passed, but storms always leave something behind. I sank to my knees beside him, the child cradled in one arm, while my free hand reached for his wounds. His body was a map of bruises, claw marks, and blood. Too much blood. The sight made my throat tighten. Yet when he lifted his gaze to me, he was smiling faintly, as though my touch dulled the ache. "You shouldn't waste tears on me," he murmured, his voice rough, barely there. I'm not wasting them. I pressed my palm over a deep gash along his ribs, trying to stop the bleeding. My tears fell onto his skin, warm against the cold night. I'm saving you. His chest rose sharply. A shudder of breath, catching as though my words cut deeper than any wound. His fingers brushed the baby's tiny hand, trembling as he whispered, I never thought I could belong like this. The bond pulsed again between us, steady and sure, and I felt something shift inside me, like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. I guided him to the remains of the fire, rekindling its embers with shaking hands. The flames caught slowly, their warmth painting his face in gold. Shadows danced across the trees, and for the first time since the chaos began, silence stretched between. Us, gentle, fragile, and healing. I cleaned his wounds with strips of my torn dress. He winced, but never pulled away. His eyes locked on mine, as though he drew strength, not from fire or flesh, but from me. When the child whimpered, I rocked him gently, the alpha watching with something fierce in his expression, something softer than pride, deeper than longing. You're more than you believe, he said quietly. His voice was a promise, a vow. Stronger, braver, mine. The last words slipped out raw, unguarded, and my heart faltered. His. I should have feared it. I should have denied it. But instead, I found myself leaning into him, the fire warming our skin, the night wrapping us in fragile peace. My forehead brushed his, breath mingling, and for a fleeting moment, the world was only us. Scars, wounds, bond, and all. The child nestled between us, sighing as though he too. Woods. Faint howls stirred again. A reminder. Safety was never more than a borrowed breath in this world. The days blurred into a fragile rhythm. We found an abandoned cabin tucked deep in the woods. Its walls weathered but standing, its roof still strong enough to hold back the rain. There, for a little while, it felt like we belonged. He hunted and brought food, his movements quieter now, always circling back to me and the child, as though some invisible tether bound him. I tended to the baby, singing lullabies I barely remembered from my own childhood. In the evenings when firelight glowed across the cabin walls, the alpha would sit near, his silver eyes softening in ways that unraveled me. But beneath that peace, a current of tension hummed. He often stood at the window when he thought I slept, staring into the trees, his jaw set tight. I knew he was listening, to whispers, to threats, to the pack that would never stop hunting what they believed was theirs. One night, as the child stirred and whimpered, I pressed him against my chest, rocking gently. The alpha moved closer, his hand brushing mine. The contact was small, but it sparked something sharp and undeniable. He looks at you the way I do, he murmured. I blinked up at him, startled. What do you mean? Like you're the center of his world, like nothing else exists. His voice caught, rough with an emotion he didn't name. The fire crackled between us, the scent of smoke and pine filling the air. I felt his words sink into me, heavy and warm, and I wanted desperately to believe them. For a moment, everything was soft, His hand lingered over mine. The baby's breathing evened, and silence folded around us like a blanket. Then the howl came, low, distant, but unmistakable. It split the night in two. The alpha stiffened, every muscle in his body tensing. His gaze met mine, and in it I saw the truth he had tried to shield me from. Our peace was ending. And somewhere deep inside, I knew the fragile family we had built was about to be tested in ways neither of us was ready for. The howl reverberated through the trees again, closer this time. My heart slammed against my ribs as I clutched the baby tighter, feeling his tiny body tremble against me. The alpha rose silently, his shadow stretching across the cabin floor like a living barrier. His eyes, silver and unyielding, scanned every corner, every darkened window. "They're here," he whispered, voice low but tense, almost a growl. "We have to move, now." I nodded, fear coiling in my stomach. But even as I followed him, my mind screamed in protest. This cabin, this fragile sanctuary we had built, it was all we had. But the alpha never hesitated. With the baby cradled in my arms, he led us through the back, a hidden path only he seemed to know. The forest enveloped us, shadows thickening around the trunks of ancient pines. I stumbled, my feet catching on roots, and he caught me instant, his strong hands steadying me, pressing me close against his chest. The warmth of him, his steady heartbeat, and the scent of pine and rain grounded me in a way nothing else could. Hours, or was it minutes, passed in tense silence. I could hear the rustle of leaves behind us, the faint echo of footsteps that weren't ours. The alpha's hand never left mine, his other arm brushing protectively across my shoulders, shielding me, shielding the baby. Finally, we reached a small clearing where the remnants of an old cabin stood, roof collapsed, walls scorched by time. It was another haven, rough and imperfect, but safe for the moment. He set me down gently, still alert, eyes scanning the shadows. I looked at him, the exhaustion and fear in his eyes mirroring my own. And I realized how utterly I had come to rely on him, not just for protection, but for strength, for calm, for a sense of belonging I had never known. "I can't lose you," he murmured, voice tight with emotion. "Not you, not him." I met his gaze, heart pounding, and for the first time, I let myself lean into the feeling between us. The raw, consuming bond that had begun in desperation and had grown into something I didn't have words for yet. And then, just as I allowed myself a breath of hope, a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing. Eyes glinting, teeth flashing in the dim light. Wolves. Not like him, but a pack of them, drawn by hunger, by curiosity, by the scent of what they believed was theirs. The alpha growled low in his chest, a sound that vibrated through the very earth beneath us. I felt it in my bones, a warning, a promise of violence if they dared cross the line. My hands trembled, but he squeezed them, grounding me, giving me courage I didn't know I had. "They won't touch us," he said, more to himself than to me. "Not while I breathe." The night held its breath. The forest waited. And in that suspended moment, I understood. We had survived storms, fires, betrayal, and loss, but this was the first test of the family we had built in the shadows, and nothing would break us, Not if we faced it together. The wolves circled, low growls rolling through the underbrush, teeth glinting in the moonlight. My pulse raced, and I clutched Caspian closer, feeling the warmth of his tiny body against mine. The Alpha stepped in front of us, his broad shoulders a living barricade. His silver eyes burned, and his lips peeled back over teeth sharper than any I'd ever seen. "Back," he commanded, his voice a deep vibrating threat that carried through the night. The wolves hesitated, unnerved by the raw power radiating from him. One step forward, testing the line, jaws snapping. Before I could react, the Alpha lunged, a blur of movement, claws digging into earth and bark. The forest echoed with snarls and the clash of muscle against muscle. I felt the heat of him, smelled the sharp tang of wolf and iron, and knew there was no hesitation in his actions. Every movement was precise, calculated, protective. Not a shred of fear, only focus, our survival. Caspian whimpered in my arms, and I shushed him, though my hands shook. The Alpha glanced back, silver eyes meeting mine, and for a heartbeat, there was a silent promise. You are safe. The wolves backed off, teeth bared, growls low and warning. The Alpha advanced slowly, letting them feel the weight of his power. Then, with a final commanding snarl, they retreated, melting into the shadows from which they had come. I sank to the ground, trembling, my body slick with sweat and relief. The baby stirred, and I pressed him to my chest, whispering soft words I didn't realize I still had in me. The Alpha approached, his massive frame looming, but his expression softened as he knelt beside me. "You're safe," he murmured, voice rough but tender. He reached out, brushing damp hair from my forehead, and I leaned into him, feeling the fire of his warmth spread through my frozen veins. I thought, my voice cracked, words failing me. He shook his head, silver eyes never leaving mine. "Never again. I will never let anything hurt you. Not them, not anyone." I felt the weight of his promise settle into me, a slow, grounding force. He lowered himself to sit beside me, letting me rest against him. His arm wrapped around my shoulders, the other hand tracing protective, unconscious patterns over Caspian's small form. The firelight from our temporary haven flickered across his black fur and human features, softening the lines of exhaustion with warmth and security. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe fully, to let go of the fear that had gripped me since the moment I had been trapped. He didn't just protect us with claws and teeth. He protected us with presence, with unwavering strength, with love that burned quietly and fiercely. The night stretched on. I felt something new, a fragile yet undeniable trust forming between us. I tilted my head, and our gazes met again. A connection that went deeper than words. "Thank you," I whispered, voice barely audible. He pressed a hand to my cheek, thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "No," he murmured. "You saved yourself. I just made sure no one stopped you from doing it." Forest around us was dark and alive, full of dangers and whispers, but for the first time, I understood what it meant to be truly protected, not just by strength, but by devotion, by presence, by heart. And as I Despian nestled safely in my arm, feeling the steady warmth of the alpha beside me. His body radiatait enfin et simit les lèvres le bruit de la nuit. Et je me suis relaxée, relâchant, laissant de la tension délicatement granée de mes muscles. Il bossa à peine petitement, sa main brouillait à mon bras, et j'ai flanqué, non pas par l'intensité de sa présence. Les yeux arges me recevèrent, et j'ai vu quelque chose de cru, vulnérable et uniquement impossible de résister. The danger of earlier seemed to have dissolved into an electric stillness, heavy with unspoken words and emotions too vast for speech. Rest, he said softly, voice rough but gentle. You've been running for too long. Let me hold you. I hesitated, but exhaustion and the lingering adrenaline made my defenses brittle. I leaned into him, feeling the strength in his chest and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my ear. His arm tightened around my shoulders, drawing me closer. I closed my eyes, letting myself be held, letting myself feel the strange, comforting thrill of being protected, not just physically, but completely. The night deepened, and the forest seemed to shrink around us, cocooning us in a fragile bubble of warmth and safety. Our breaths mingled, slow and shallow, and the tiny weight of Caspian between us felt like a tether to a life I had never dared to dream could be mine. I don't even know your name, I whispered, voice trembling. Though I knew he could hear the depth of everything I didn't say, he chuckled softly, low and husky, brushing a strand of damp hair from my face. You don't need to know it yet. I'll be here. That's enough for now. Something in his tone, in the way his fingers lingered on my skin, stirred a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire we built for the night. My pulse jumped as I realized the silent pull between us, magnetic and undeniable. Every touch, every glance carried the weight of protection, desire, and a strange, burgeoning intimacy that left me breathless. Hours passed in a suspended hush. He didn't speak much, but his presence spoke louder than words ever could. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the tension in my chest eased, replaced by a gentle, insistent heat. When his lips finally brushed against my temple, a shiver ran through me, not from fear, but from longing I didn't know I had. Our closeness deepened, unspoken consent moving us toward each other. Every touch, every brush of skin was electric, a merging of need and trust. I felt his strength, his protective instinct, and beneath it all, a softness reserved only for me. That night, we weren't just survivors or fugitives. We were two halves of something ancient and urgent, drawing each other in with a force neither of us could deny. When he finally claimed me, it was desperate and consuming, a collision of power and tenderness that left me trembling, gasping, yet utterly whole. In the aftermath, I lay against him, feeling the slow, grounding rhythm of his chest beneath. Me, Caspian, slept between us, oblivious to the storm of our emotions, a fragile anchor that bound us in a fragile new family. As dawn crept across the forest floor, painting the trees in soft gold and silver, I realized with a strange certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. That night had changed everything. Our bond, our destiny, the life growing inside me. And though I didn't yet know what the future held, I understood one thing clearly. We had found each other, and nothing, not even the darkness that had chased me, could take that away. The months that followed were a slow, suffocating ache. He was gone, vanished as suddenly as he had appeared, leaving only the memory of his silver eyes and the warmth of his touch burning in me. Nights stretched endlessly, each one heavier than the last, and the forest, once a refuge, became a prison of loneliness. Caspian stirred restlessly in my arms, his small hands grasping for comfort. And I tried to shield him from the gnawing void. His father's absence left. I carried the secret of my growing life inside me, the evidence of the night that had changed everything. My heart ached with the knowledge that he had no idea, that the child was his, yet he had walked away, thinking our bond temporary, fleeting. I whispered to the small being within me, promising protection, love, and a life built on our own terms. The wolves around us grew bolder as the months passed, drawn to the scent of vulnerability. And danger became a constant companion. Each time they circled, I felt a cold fear, but I also felt something else. An unshakable strength I had discovered within myself. The same quiet courage that had once allowed me to face them alone now guided me in every decision, every protective act for Caspian and the life I carried. When he finally returned, the forest was in turmoil. Wolves snarled and twisted in the shadows, claiming territory, scenting the child, and whispering accusations that were not his to heed. I step forward, standing tall despite the fear coiling in my chest, holding Caspian between us. He looked at me, and I saw the surprise and confusion in his eyes, the unspoken question of why I hadn't come to him, why I had survived without him. "My child," I whispered, voice trembling yet fierce, "is yours." His face paled, as if I had struck him. His eyes searched mine, seeking answers in the turmoil of the forest, and the fear in Caspian's tiny gaze. The alpha in him raged silently. A tempest barely contained, but the man who had saved me, who had claimed me in the forest that night, hesitated, unable to believe what he was seeing. I didn't know," he muttered, voice breaking under the weight of disbelief and guilt. I thought you were alone that night." His words faltered as he looked at Caspian, whose small, wolf-like ears twitched as if sensing the tension between us. I held my ground, fury and love blending into one. I survived. I protected him. And now it's time. You claim your responsibility or step aside. The wolves circled closer, snarling, asserting their claim, and I realized the precariousness of our situation. The child was half their blood, and they would not easily accept him. Fear and desperation clawed at me, but I stood taller, letting my quiet strength radiate outward, forcing the wolves to hesitate. Then, a shadow moved through the trees, powerful, commanding. The alpha returned, no longer just the man, but the force that had once captivated me. His silver eyes met mine, and in them I saw not anger, but recognition, understanding, and a longing that mirrored my own. Without a word, he stepped forward, placing himself between us and the pack. "He is mine," he growled, low and final, "and she is mine. No wolf dares challenge me." The forest fell into an uneasy silence. Wolves backed down, growls fading, as if acknowledging a power they could not fight. He turned to me then. His expression raw and unguarded. "I left too soon," he whispered, voice thick with regret. "But I will not leave again. I will protect you and him with everything I am." Tears blurred my vision as I handed Caspian to him. He cradled the child gently, awe and wonder in his gaze, and I felt the first flicker of hope bloom in my chest. Our bond, once fractured by absence and misunderstanding, was mending, knitting together in the fire of love, protection, and redemption. That night, under the silver glow of the moon and the whispered assurances of the forest, we found each other again. We did not speak much. Words were unnecessary. Our hands intertwined, hearts beating in unison, and the night stretched around us like a cocoon of warmth and promise. In the quiet intimacy of that moment, I realized that survival was no longer about enduring hardship alone. It was about finding strength in love, in family, in the quiet moments of trust and tenderness that could outlast any storm. And as we lay together, the three of us, I knew that this time, nothing could take us apart. The forest never felt the same after that night. The bond between us had strengthened, but the danger was never far. Wolves still prowled the edges of our home, drawn to the scent of Caspian, whispering threats that made my blood run cold. Yet in Lysander's presence, I felt a calm I had never known. His protective alpha energy was a shield, but I also knew that life's storms were rarely so easily kept at bay. One evening, months later, a shadow crept over our home. The forest fell silent, the wind holding its breath. Wolves, more aggressive than before, attacked, intent on claiming the child as one of their own. I fought with everything I had, but even my courage was not enough. Lysander arrived, teeth bared, eyes glowing silver with raw fury. Together, we pushed them back, but in the chaos, Caspian was injured. I held him in my arms, his small body limp and trembling. Panic clawed at me, tears blurring my vision. Lysander's hands were gentle, yet strong as he say. He whispered promises, trying to soothe both the child and me, but even his power could not shield us from fate. A few days later, Caspian's small heart stilled, leaving a silence so deep it felt like the forest itself had mourned with us. I fell into despair, broken and hollow. Lysander could not erase the guilt gnawing at him, nor could he bring back the child he had missed. Yet he did not leave me. He held me through nights filled with grief, his presence a steady heartbeat against mine. Slowly, the forest's warmth returned, mingled with our tears and the fire of love that refused to die. Time moved on, carrying us to the human lands beyond the forest. Here, we rebuilt our lives from the ashes of loss. The city, alive with scents and sounds unfamiliar to the wild, became our sanctuary. Lysander's presence remained my anchor, his touch a constant reassurance. And amidst this new beginning, life offered us a second chance. Months later, I gave birth to a child with no wolf markings. a pure human soul cradled in my arms. The miracle of his life washed away the shadows of the past. Lysander gazed at him with awe and adoration, his fingers trembling as he touched the soft curls of our son's hair. The child cooed, smiling into the warmth of our love. And in that moment, the grief of Caspian's loss softened, replaced by hope and renewal. We embraced the quiet joys of family. Walks under moonlit skies, the smell of pine mingled with laughter, and the gentle rhythm of a home built on love rather than fear. The fire of our first nights together, the storm of past hardships, had transformed into warmth, nurturing the rebirth of our family. Lysander's silver eyes, once haunted by guilt and anger, now shone with pride and devotion. Our bond deepened with every shared glance, every whispered promise, every night spent under the glow of the moon on our balcony. I had once been silent, overlooked, powerless. Now, as Luna, as his mate, as the mother of our child, I felt the quiet strength of a soul recognized, honored, and loved. Through hardship, loss, and the cruel tests of fate, we had emerged stronger, tempered like steel in the fires of grief and the storms of life. We were no longer defined by what had been taken from us, but by what we had fought to protect, the love we had chosen to nurture, and the family we had created with our own hands. And as the moonlight bathed our balcony that night, the city quiet beneath us, I rested against Lysander, our son sleeping peacefully between us. The forest, the wolves, the storms, all that had once threatened to tear us apart, were behind us. Only love remained. Only family remained. Only us. We had survived. We had loved. And in that love, we had finally found home. The nights that followed were quiet, but filled with a simmering tension, the kind only those who had walked through fire could feel. Even in the human lands, whispers of the wolves. Lingering presence haunted the edges of my mind. I could feel their eyes in the dark, the faint scent of their fur on the wind, a reminder that danger never fully disappeared. But Lysander was always there, his presence like a protective shield, his hand firm around mine whenever fear threatened to creep in. One evening, the moon rose full and heavy, its silver light spilling across the balcony where we sat. Our son slept peacefully inside, and for the first time, the three of us, Lysander, our child, and I were able to breathe without looking over our shoulders. Lysander's arm wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, his warmth seeping into my bones. I closed my eyes, letting myself be held, letting the quiet settle into me like a balm. "You've changed me," I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. He tilted his head, silver eyes catching the moonlight. "No, Serafina, you've always been the strongest. I was lost before I found you." His thumb traced lazy circles over the back of my hand, grounding me in. The moment. Now I know what it feels like to be whole, to have someone to fight for, and someone to come home to. I leaned back against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the steadying pulse of an alpha who had once been a stranger in the woods, a predator, and now was my mate, my partner, my home. The storm of our past, the fire of our passion, the heartbreak of Caspian's loss, all of it had forged a bond neither time nor danger could break. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, Our life slowly shaped itself into a rhythm of quiet love, gentle laughter, and the soft chaos of raising a child. Lysander never left my side, his protective instincts heightened yet tempered by patience and understanding. And though the past sometimes crept into our thoughts, the memory of wolves, of threats of lost innocence, we faced it together, healing through touch, through whispers, through shared moments of vulnerability. One night, standing on the balcony again, I traced my fingers over the crescent moon embroidered into my robes, a symbol of my journey from silent Omega to Luna, from lost girl to mother and queen. The wind carried the scent of pine and earth, the soft murmur of the city below mingling with the distant calls of nocturnal birds. I felt the quiet pulse of life around us, the cycles of moonlight and darkness, the constant ebb and flow of change. "You've made a home of me," Xander said softly, breaking the silence. "You've shown me what it means to be loved, fully, without reservation, and I will spend every day proving I am worthy of it." I smiled, letting my head rest against his chest, listening to the slow, steady rise and fall of his breath. "You are," I whispered, "and we are enough. The past, the wolves, the storms, they're all behind us. What matters is us, this moment, our family." The moonlight bathed us, silver and serene, and I felt a profound peace settle into my soul. For the first time in a lifetime, I was not fighting to survive. I was not hiding from danger. I was living, breathing, loving. The storm had passed, the fire had purified, and the cycle of life had brought me to this: warmth, family, and a love that could weather anything. Lauzon lowered his lips to my ear, his voice a husky whisper. "I will never let anything take you from me again, Serafina. Never." I closed my eyes, letting his words sink into me, letting the love between us fill the spaces that fear and sorrow had once occupied. And as the night deepened and the moon rose high over our city, I knew this was our forever. The calm after the storm, the fire that never dimmed, the life we had fought for and finally claimed. We were home. The mornings in our new life were soft and unhurried. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows, gilding the room with warmth and gold, catching the strands of Caspian's hair as he rolled over in his crib, gurgling and stretching his tiny limbs. Xander was already awake, leaning against the doorframe, watching us with a soft smile that reached all the way to his silver eyes. Even in repose, he radiated that quiet, commanding alpha energy, a presence that both protected and soothed. I sat on the edge of the bed, brushing a lock of hair from Caspian's forehead. His small hand reached up, grasping my finger, anchoring me in the moment. The memories of wolves, of fear, of loss still hovered like shadows at the edges of my mind. But here in this sunlit room, they had no power. Here we were alive. Here we were family. Xander stepped closer, his bare chest warm against my back as he leaned over to kiss my shoulder. "He looks like you," he murmured, his voice thick with awe and tenderness. "In everything, your strength, your spirit." I felt the familiar pull in my chest, that mixture of longing and love. and pressed my hand to his. And he has you too. That's what keeps him strong. We spent the day in quiet routines, small gestures of domestic life, preparing meals, tidying the home, reading stories to Caspian in the golden afternoon light. Yet beneath the calm, the rhythm of our lives carried a subtle undercurrent of their old storm, the unspoken fear that danger could come, that the wolves might return, that the fragile bubble we had created could be pierced. But Lysandre never let me face it alone. Even when shadows flickered at the edges of our world, he was there. A shield, a constant. Nightfall brought with it the ritual we had grown to cherish, the balcony under the moonlight. Wrapped in each other's arms, the scent of pine and earth drifting up from the forest below, the cool night air brushing our skin, we shared the quiet magic of intimacy that had nothing to do with passion and everything to do with trust and presence. "You're healing me," he said one night, his voice low and intimate, brushing against my ear like a soft caress. "Not just from the wolves, from myself. You've made me whole in ways I didn't think possible." I leaned against him, letting the moonlight illuminate the silver streaks in his hair, the lines etched by battles and burdens. "And you're saving me too," I whispered. "Not from danger, but from the fear I carried for so long. You remind me that love isn't weakness, it's a strength we both share." Our hands intertwined, the child's laughter echoing faintly from his room. The world outside, bathed in the soft luminescence of the moon, I felt a profound sense of completion. The cycle of storms, of fire, of pain and survival had brought us here, not just as lovers, but as a family bound by choice, by sacrifice, by the gentle, unwavering power of love. The weeks that followed were a tapestry of quiet victories and tender moments, teaching Caspian to walk, watching him discover the world with the same curiosity that had once defined me, sharing long conversations with Lysandre about the pack, the past, and the life we now shaped together, and finding solace in the stillness of nights where only the wind, the moon, and the soft rhythm of our hearts marked the passage of time. One evening, as autumn leaves painted the forest in fiery shades of orange and red, Lysandre led me to the balcony, our fingers entwined. "Look at this," he murmured, gesturing to the horizon where the sun set in a blaze of gold and crimson. "The world keeps changing, Sarafina. Storms rise, fires burn, seasons shift, but we endure, we adapt, we love." I rested my head against his chest, the beat of his heart a steady, reassuring rhythm. "And we are not afraid anymore," I said softly. "Not of the past, not of the wolves, not of anything. We have each other." He kissed the top of my head, his breath warm, grounding, and whispered, "Always, my Luna, always." And under the glow of the setting sun, with the scent of pine and earth drifting around us, breathing from his crib, the memory of the wolves, their growls, the ambush, the shadows that had once consumed my world, lingered at the edges. But in these moments, their power was diminished, almost non-existent. Safety was tangible. Home was tangible. Love was tangible. And yet, even in this peace, The cycle of life continued to test us. One morning, as the first snow melted to reveal tender shoots of green, I felt it. The familiar flutter, the sign of life growing within me again. My heart skipped, caught between fear and wonder. I knew what it meant. The memory of the first time, the baby we had lost to tragedy, the grief that had threatened to consume us, was raw, a shadow that could not be ignored. When I told Lysander, his reaction was a mix of awe, reverence, and quiet trepidation. He took my hands, holding them against his chest, the warmth of his skin anchoring me to the present. "We've been given a second chance," he murmured. This one is ours. I will never let fear dictate our love again." As the months passed, the pregnancy became a shared journey. Xander's protective alpha energy manifested in small, subtle gestures, preparing meals, ensuring the fire was always warm, and wrapping me in his arms whenever anxiety threatened to creep in. Our nights were filled with whispered confessions and promises, our connection deepening in ways beyond mere physical touch. Love had become a living, breathing entity between us, a force that healed both old wounds and new fears. The night of the child's birth was quiet and unhurried, the forest cloaked in a silver glow under a full moon. The air smelled of pine, and the faint hum of winter winds carried through the trees like a lullaby. Xander never left my side, his hands steady, his presence a fortress around me. When the baby's first cry pierced the night, it was as if the universe itself had exhaled in relief. This child, fully human, healthy and warm, was a testament to our survival, our love, and the family we had chosen to build. Caspian's eyes widened with wonder as he reached out to touch the baby. And I felt the circle of our family, past and present, love and loss, closing into a perfect whole. Lysander, holding both children close, kissed my forehead, his voice low and reverent. We did it. We made it through. All of it, together. The days that followed were soft with domestic bliss. Snow turned to early spring rain, washing the world clean. And with it, the last traces of fear and shadow seemed to dissolve. Our home was filled with laughter, with gentle debates over bedtime stories, and the quiet awe of discovery as our children explored the world. Lysander's silver eyes shone with pride and love, and I felt my own heart swell in ways words could never capture. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of amber and rose, we stepped onto the balcony, the two children in our arms. The forest stretched before us, alive with color and life. The wind carrying the scent of pine and blooming wildflowers. I leaned into Lysander, feeling his heartbeat through the warmth of his chest, and whispered, "We survived everything. Storms, fire, loss, everything." He kissed the top of my head, his lips gentle, grounding. "And we'll survive whatever comes next, because we are together, always." Under the glow of the setting sun and the quiet chorus of life around us, I realized that we were not just survivors. We were a family forged through love, strengthened through hardship, and reborn in joy. Every touch, every glance, every shared moment was a declaration that fear no longer controlled us, that the past had no dominion over our hearts, and that love, powerful, unyielding, and gentle, was the true force that bound us all. The storm had passed, the fire had burned and left warmth in its place, and under the endless cycle of moons and seasons, we had finally come home. The first spring in our new life felt like a gentle awakening. The forest around our home breathed with new life, each bud in bloom a reminder that even after destruction, growth was inevitable. Caspian toddled through the soft moss, his laughter mingling with the chirping of birds, while the new baby rested in my arms, eyes wide and curious, reflecting the green of the world outside. Lysander moved among us like a silent sentinel, his alpha energy a steady current we all unconsciously followed, protective and unyielding. Sometimes he would lift Caspian onto his shoulders, and together they would explore the edges of the forest, teaching him which berries were safe and which paths led to secret clearings. I watched them from the doorway, the sun casting a halo of light around them, and felt a swell of quiet gratitude. This was more than survival, it was thriving. We had built a life from fragments of pain and loss, and in doing so, had discovered a depth of love that was as fierce as it was gentle. Night times were our most sacred hours. By the fire, Lysandre and I would talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes we didn't speak at all, letting the crackling flames and the soft breathing of our children fill the space between us. It was in those moments I realized the depth of our bond. No words were needed to convey understanding, forgiveness, or devotion. The silence itself had become a language, one we spoke fluently. But even in this peace, the past had a way of slipping into our lives like a shadow at dusk. One afternoon, while exploring a shallow creek with Caspian, I caught sight of a wolf watching from the tree line. Its silver eyes mirrored Lysandre's own. My heart thudded with a mix of fear and recognition. Lysandre approached, hand extended to me, and the wolf stepped back, acknowledging him, but keeping its distance. It was a reminder. The wild was always near, the ties of our past never fully gone. Yet, for the first time, the threat didn't terrify me. With Lysandre, with our children, we had a strength that the world could not break. Our love deepened in quiet moments as well. Balcony nights under the full moon, when the forest exhaled cool breezes scented with pine and flowers. Lander would cradle me close, our foreheads touching, and whisper stories of his youth, his fears, and the loneliness he had carried before finding me. I shared my own memories, the dark nights of silence, and the years of longing for something more than survival. Each revelation, each confession, wove our souls closer, threading a tapestry of trust and unshakable connection. Caspian and his sibling grew, their laughter echoing through the trees and walls alike. They discovered joy in the simplest things, skipping across fallen logs, chasing dragonflies, listening to the wind rustle through branches. And with each day, deeper, a quiet, smoldering energy that reminded us of the storms we had endured and the fire we had kindled together. One night, after the children slept, we walked through the forest together, hand in hand. The moon was full, its silver light painting shadows across the ground. Lysander stopped and turned to me, eyes reflecting the glow of the moon. "We've been through storms, Seraphina," he murmured. "We've seen fire and loss, and yet here we are, stronger, unbroken, together." I pressed my hand against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my palm. "We are home," I whispered. the words carrying the weight of every hardship, every triumph, every moment that had brought us to this place. He leaned down, brushing his lips against mine, in a kiss that was both a promise and a celebration. Around us, the forest seemed to exhale in harmony, the whispers of the wind carrying our shared joy to every leaf and stone. This was no longer a life of fear or uncertainty. It was a life built on love, trust, and the unyielding bond of family. Our family, chosen and forged in fire, storm, and heartache. And in that moment, under the endless cycle of the moon and stars, I understood something profound. We were not just surviving anymore. We were living, truly, fully living. And nothing, neither past scars nor future shadows, could take that away. Spring melted into summer, and our life settled into a rhythm that felt both wild and tender. The forest hummed with life, the scent of blooming moon petal flowers blending with pine and fresh earth. Caspian and his sibling darted through the undergrowth, their laughter a chorus that seemed to awaken the woods themselves. I followed at a slower pace, holding the baby, feeling the weight of new life and the quiet pulse of love that surrounded us. Alexander moved beside me, ever alert, ever protective, yet gentle, his silver eyes scanning the horizon, reflecting a constant, unspoken promise of safety. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and orange, a distant howl cut through the forest. My heart tightened, memories of past horrors brushing against the edges of my mind. Xander tensed beside me, his hand sliding to the small of my back. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low and commanding, a wave of alpha energy settling around us like a shield. I did, letting the warmth of his body steady my nerves. We discovered a clearing that night, lit by fireflies and bathed in moonlight. The children played along the edges, their shadows dancing among the trees. Xander and I found ourselves alone for a moment, the forest holding its breath around us. He cupped my face, his thumbs tracing gentle paths over my skin, eyes searching mine. "Every storm we've weathered," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "led me to you, to this, to us." My chest swelled, the weight of everything, loss, survival, fear, and hope, settling into a perfect dot. Quiet moment. I leaned into him, letting the scent of pine and his strength envelope me. But peace was fleeting. Weeks later, remnants of the rogue wolves we had fought defeated began appearing at the edges of our territory, shadows among the trees that set my pulse racing. One night, while Xander patrolled with Caspian on his shoulders, a pack of snarling wolves emerged from the underbrush. My instincts screamed, but before I could act, Xander was there, muscles coiled, eyes blazing silver. He moved with a fluid, terrifying grace, protective and precise, and the wolves retreated after a tense standoff. I watched him, my heart clenching in awe and relief. His strength was overwhelming, yes, but what held me most was the tenderness he always reserved for us, even in the face of danger. That night, under the moon's cool glow, we returned to the balcony of our home. The children slept, tucked into the warmth of their beds. Xander held me close, forehead against mine, our breaths mingling. "You've healed more than me, Serafina," he whispered. "You've healed yourself. You've healed this pack, our family, and you've healed me." I shivered, leaning into the warmth of his chest, feeling the fire of love and trust burn brighter than any fear. "We heal together," I murmured, tracing a finger along his jawline. He nodded, a soft growl of agreement vibrating in his chest, a sound I had come to recognize as contentment, devotion, and desire all at once. Time passed with gentle rhythm. The children grew bolder, exploring deeper into the forest, learning the ways of both humans and wolves. Our love deepened, quiet but fierce. Each stolen touch, whispered word, and lingering gaze a testament to the bond that no hardship could unravel. One night, after a storm that had swept through the forest, we walked together, hand in hand, the ground slick with rain, the air heavy with petrichor. The moon broke through the clouds, casting silver streaks across our... Xander stopped, pulling me close. "Storms change us," he murmured, voice rough with awe and emotion. "But fire keeps us warm. You are my fire, Serafina, my constant, my home." I pressed my lips to his chest, letting the rhythm of his heartbeat echo my own. We spent that night beneath the stars, the balcony overlooking our world, letting the forest and the moon witness the depth of our connection. Our family, once fractured and threatened, now pulsed with life, love, and resilience. And as I drifted to sleep in his arms, I understood fully. Survival had taught us courage, hardship had forged our bond, and love, deep, patient, unyielding, had made us whole. Months passed, and the forest around us thrummed with life. Every sunrise brought laughter from the children, the soft rustle of leaves, and the scent of blooming moon-petal flowers mingling with pine. Caspian's sibling had grown into a curious, adventurous toddler, fearless and full of light, while Caspian himself was quick-witted, mischievous, and endlessly loving. Our home, once a haven of solitude, was now alive with warmth, chaos, and the quiet satisfaction of belonging. One evening, the wind shifted, carrying with it a strange tension. I noticed it first, a subtle unease in the air, the hairs on my arms standing, as if the forest itself were warning us. Xander's senses picked it up too. His hand tightened around mine as he scanned the horizon, silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Something's coming," he murmured, his voice low and unwavering. The alpha energy radiating from him made my chest thrum with a mixture of fear and desire. A distant howl split the night, sharp and menacing. My heart clenched, memories of past wolf attacks flashing behind my eyelids. But Xander didn't hesitate. He gathered the children, wrapping them close, and I followed him into the dens. Trees. Shadows moved among the undergrowth. Unfamiliar wolves, larger and more aggressive than any we had faced before. Xander shifted partially, not fully wolf, his form towering and lethal. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice firm but steady, a beacon of protection. The wolves circled, snarling, their eyes reflecting hunger and malice. I clutched the children tighter, feeling the pulse of their fear mix with mine. Xander moved with a fluid, predatory grace, his presence alone making some of the intruders falter. The confrontation was tense, but brief. Xander's authority, strength, and connection to the pack overpowered them. The wolves retreated, leaving behind a tense silence broken only by our ragged breathing. I exhaled, relief washing over me in hot, shaky waves. He turned, brushing a damp lock of hair from my face, silver eyes softening. "We are safe, always," he whispered, pressing a gentle kiss to my temple. My chest rose and fell against his, the children safe between. "You." Later, as the moon rose high, we returned to the balcony. The forest stretched endlessly, silvered by moonlight, shadows of leaves dancing across the walls. Xander pulled me close from behind, arms tight around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. "Storms come, Sarafina," he murmured, voice husky. "But we endure them. We rise from them, and we do it together." I rested my hands over his, feeling the warmth and strength of his body. "And the fire," I whispered, "keeps us alive." He chuckled softly, a low rumble that vibrated through me, and kissed my shoulder. "Fire for warmth, fire for family, fire for rebirth." We stayed there long into the night, silent but complete, letting the moon witness our bond. The children slept soundly inside, unaware of the danger we had just survived. But their safety was the lifeblood of our connection. Our love had been tested, survived storms and wolves alike, and in the quiet aftermath and unshakable devotion. The next morning, dawn broke in soft shades of pink and gold. Lisandre and I walked through the forest hand in hand, the children trailing behind, discovering small wonders, wildflowers, hidden streams, and the occasional timid woodland creature. Every moment was a reminder of our survival, our transformation, and the family we had chosen to protect. I realized then that life was not about avoiding storms, but about weathering them with courage, finding fire in the darkness, and creating a home where love could thrive. Lisandre glanced at me, a slow smile playing on his lips, silver eyes full of devotion. "We are home," he said simply. I nodded, pressing my forehead to his, feeling the unspoken truth that wherever we were together, that was our sanctuary, our rebirth, our forever. The days settled into a gentle rhythm, each one stretching lazily under the warm sun. The scent of pine and moon petals wrapping the forest in a perpetual embrace. Caspian and his sibling ran through the trees, laughter echoing like soft chimes, while Xander and I walked behind, hands entwined, sharing glances that spoke volumes without words. Life felt fragile and precious, and we treasured every stolen moment. One evening, the sky burned with the colors of a dying sunset, deep crimson, gold, and violet blending into one another. We found ourselves on the balcony once more, the children asleep inside, the world below calm and still. Alexander's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chest warm against mine, and I leaned into him, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. all the storms we faced, all the lies and fear, they've only brought us here, he murmured, voice thick with emotion. I turned in his arms, gazing into his silver eyes that reflected the moonlight. And we've survived because we have each other, I whispered. The truth of it resonated deep in my soul. Through loss, rejection, and fear, we had found strength in love, and compassion had become our greatest power. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to my knuckles. You are my Luna, my heart, my home, he said. I felt tears prick at my eyes, a mixture of relief, joy, and lingering sorrow for all we had endured. He brushed them away gently, his touch both tender and electrifying. And you've taught me that silence can be as powerful as words, that vulnerability is strength, and that love, true love, can heal even the deepest wounds. The forest around us whispered in the night, leaves rustling softly, as if affirming his words. Firelight from our hearth flickered through the windows, warm and comforting, casting golden hues across the balcony where we stood together. In that glow, we saw our past, our losses, and our triumphs reflected. And we knew we had truly been reborn, stronger, wiser, unbreakable. Lysander tilted my chin, forcing my gaze to meet his, and I saw the depth of devotion, the unshakable promise he made silently with every breath. No matter what comes, he said softly, we will face it together. We will rise. We will protect our family. We will never let fear define us again. I leaned forward, pressing my lips to his in a kiss that was tender, lingering, and filled with all the words we could never speak aloud. The moon above bathed us in silver light, a silent witness to the love that had endured storms, fire, and heartbreak. It was a love that had been tested, scarred, and yet stronger for all it had survived. Later, we stood together, watching the children sleep safely in their rooms, and I realized that family is not only born of blood, but of choice, trust, and unyielding devotion. Every trial, every tear, every whispered fear had led us to this moment, a life brimming with love. As the night deepened, Xander held me close, and we whispered our promises to one another beneath the silvered moon. Forever, he breathed. I smiled, pressing my head to his chest, feeling the warmth, the strength, the infinite patience of the man who had once saved me from darkness and had since become my light. Forever, I echoed, knowing that no storm, no wolf, no lie could ever take us from each other. And in that quiet, sacred space, with the forest around us and our children dreaming peacefully inside, we found not just survival, but the fullness of life, love, and home. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, spilling gold and rose across the forest canopy, painting everything with a soft, magical glow. I stepped onto the balcony, wrapped in a warm cloak, the chill of the morning brushing against my skin, and found Lysander already there, his silhouette strong and unwavering against the awakening sky. He held Caspienne in his arms, the child's tiny hand clutching a lock of his hair, and for a moment, the world felt perfectly still. Just the three of us, a family forged from storms, fire, and unspoken promises. A gentle breeze stirred, carrying the earthy scent of the forest and the sweet, lingering fragrance of moon petal. The leaves whispered secrets of past trials, of battles survived, of love tested and proven true. I reached for a Zander, letting my fingers intertwine with his, feeling the pulse of his life and the steady, unshakable heartbeat of our bond. This is what we fought for, I murmured. He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. Everything we've endured, every lie, every loss, every tear, it led us here, to this life, to this love, he whispered. His voice was soft, but carried the power of a promise, a vow that no darkness could ever undo. Caspian stirred, letting out a small yawn, and I watched him stretch in Elzander's arm, half human, half wolf. A living testament to the miracles of love and resilience. I felt a swell of gratitude and awe. Our child had survived. We had survived. And the pain of the past had transformed into strength, compassion, and warmth. The sky deepened to shades of sapphire, and a few wisps of storm clouds lingered at the edges. A reminder that change was a constant companion. But here, in this moment, the storm had passed. The fire that had burned within us, rage, fear, longing, had softened into a comforting glow, a warmth that wrapped around our hearts and our home. I leaned into Elander, resting my head against his chest. "We've healed," I whispered. "Not just us, but everything around us, the pack, the land, our hearts." He kissed the top of my head, his breath warm, grinding, a tether to the present and the promise of the future. "And we'll continue to heal, together," he said. His hands moved gently to cradle my face, and I met his silver eyes, the eyes of my mate, my king, my home. There was none fear there now, only love, reverence, and a quiet, unshakable certainty. The children's laughter floated up from the forest clearing below, carrying the pure, innocent joy that only new life could bring. Yzender lifted me into his arms effortlessly, carrying me toward the balcony railing where the moonlight pooled in silver ribbons. We stood together, watching our family, watching the world awaken, feeling the pulse of life, love, and enduring hope. I closed my eyes, letting the scent of pine and moon petals, the warmth of firelight still lingering in our hearts, and the soft rustle of the forest surround me. In that space between past and future, between storm and calm, I understood the truth of our journey. Love is not born from perfection, but from survival, from trust, from courage, and from the willingness to heal each other's wounds. Léander l'oermit gentiment, et nous avons pu les revins. Le ciel a quel kaléidoscope de couleurs, la lune fêtant dans son cycle, le soleil se levant comme un symbole de nouveau commencement. Il me rudoie, Sarafina. Pas d'un peut nous toucher ici. Aucune ombre peut nous atteindre. Nous sommes levés, éternels. J'ai souri, pouillant ma main contre lui, sans doute aînéant, and beneath the awakening sky, surrounded by the forest that had witnessed our trials and triumphs. The evening settled over the forest like a soft velvety blanket, the air tinged with the crisp scent of pine and the faint sweetness of moon petals still lingering from the day. Lander and I stood together on the balcony, our fingers entwined, the gentle sway of the night breeze carrying the whispers of leaves and distant streams. Caspian slept peacefully in his room, a steady rhythm of tiny breaths, reminding us of all we had endured and all we had gained. A low moon hung in the sky, silver and watchful, reflecting off the dewy treetops. Its light danced across Londer's features, highlighting the curve of his jaw, the strength in his shoulders, and the softness in his silver eyes as they met mine. I traced a finger along the scar of his past struggles, along the lines that bore both pain and wisdom, feeling the weight of everything we had survived together. "Do you ever think about what could have been?" I asked quietly, my voice almost lost in the gentle rustle of the night. He shook his head, pressing his forehead to mine. "No, every choice, every heartbreak, every danger brought us here, to this moment, to us." His voice carried both certainty and vulnerability, a powerful mixture that anchored me like nothing else could. The memory of the storms, the wolves, the ambush, the nights spent trembling with fear, floated through my mind, but they no longer carried the weight of despair. They had been transformed by fire, by love, by courage, by the bond that had grown between us in silence, in longing, in truth. The pain of loss and rejection had become a foundation, not a cage. Lysander pulled me closer, his strong arms a shield against the world, and I felt the surge of protection, of alpha energy that had drawn me to him from the start. Yet beneath the strength was tenderness, a careful, deliberate warmth that healed all the old wounds I hadn't realized I was still carrying. He kissed my temple, his lips soft, grounding. And I felt the years of fear and loneliness slip away. "The pack, they've come to accept me," I whispered, remembering the ceremonies, the gestures of respect, the acknowledgement of my strength. "But it's you who truly saw me, you who healed me." His smile was slow, genuine, carrying the weight of both joy and relief. "And you, Serafina, you showed me how to live again. You reminded me that even a king, even an alpha, can be human, that love is not weakness, it is power." I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and let the cycle of night and life wash over me. The storm that had changed everything, the fire that had burned away fear, the moon that had guided us through darkness. I felt the pulse of the forest, the rhythm of our lives entwined, and the quiet certainty of belonging. Caspian's laughter echoed faintly from the next room as he stirred awake. A salad so pure and full of life that it made my heart swell with uncontainable love. Lysandre leaned down to press a gentle kiss to my lips, a promise and a claim. And I returned it with equal fervor, tasting warmth, safety, and the unspoken vow that we would face all tomorrows together. The moon rose higher, bathing us in silver light, and the fire of our love, quiet, steady, enduring, glowed within us. No lies, no shadows, no past pain could touch the family we had forged. We were a cycle renewed, a bond unbroken, a home found not in walls, but in each other. As the night deepened, we stood there together, the forest around us breathing, the wind whispering secrets of survival and hope, the moon marking the passage of time. In that moment, I understood fully that love was our strength, our sanctuary, our truth. And with Lysander's arms around me, Caspian's laughter nearby, and the gentle rhythm of the world around us, I knew beyond all doubt that we were home. 6 months later, the préau du Black Moon Pack chimère de vente et quiète célébration. L'air était riche entre le sang de pigne, de pétales de lune et du fumé lenti dedans, qui se décrèquetait doucement au centre, un rappel de transformation, rebelle et la vie que nous avons combattue pour protéger. Cette hall, habituellement échoée par l'autorité du roi et le conseil, avait humère de belles conversations. Et les rythmes étaient denses de la Pâque, un marchand de sacrabaille et de respect. À Lysander, y nous voyait saut plus trouble, un plus niais. Mais un terre de Sylvain, embrasé d'à gauche, symbole de la sagesse, force et pas Fanny avec forgé. Caspian, non toddling, avec son casque déterminé de yeux blancs, osé des membres du pack, délitrit niaiement avec sa charme innocente. Light, full, deep joy. Lysandre's hand was steady in mine, his thumb stroking my knuckles, grounding me in this reality that felt almost too perfect to be true. His silver eyes, still fierce, yet softened by love and pride, met mine across the distance of the crowd. We had endured storms that could have broken us, fires that could have consumed us, and nights of despair so deep they had threatened to take everything. And yet here we stood, survivors, healers, and mates bound by a love stronger than any threat the world could conjure. The council had been purged of deceit, their lies exposed, and their authority diminished. Trust had been rebuilt on the foundation of truth, compassion, and shared purpose. Morena, the old healer, remained steadfastly by our side, her loyalty a testament to endurance and wisdom. Atticus, now head of the royal guard, held his place with integrity earned through trials. Those who had tried to erase me, to rewrite the story of my life, had been exiled, a reminder that the age of lies was over, and a new era of honesty and love had begun. Lysander leaned closer, whispering into my ear, his voice low and intimate, carrying the weight of promises made and fulfilled. You are home now, Seraphina, not in walls, not in safety, but in us, in our love, our family, our pack. I rested my head against his chest, feeling the steady pulse of life beneath my ear. We are home, I echoed, my voice soft, certain, and full of a peace I had never known before. The past, the wolves, the storms, the nights of fear and despair, had become symbols, not scars. The storm had brought change. The fire had brought warmth and rebirth. And the moon, ever watchful, had guided us through darkness to this place of light. Caspian, safe and adored, ran back to us, his laughter a bridge across the distance of all our past sorrows. Lysander lifted him into his arms, a silent vow etched into every careful movement. I reached out, touching Lysander's cheek. Strength, the vulnerability and love. We've survived, I whispered. We've lived, he corrected gently, pressing his forehead to mine. His lips met mine in a kiss that was tender, unhurried, and filled with everything we had endured and overcome. It was a kiss that healed, that celebrated, that claimed our past, present, and future. The hall glowed with quiet reverence as the pack watched, the firelight flickering across faces filled with respect, awe, and belonging. The moon rose high, silver and constant, casting a glow over us, over our family, over the home we had built together. In that light, I saw the cycle of our journey. Storm, fire, moon, woven into every heartbeat, every glance, every whispered word. And for the first time in my life, I knew without doubt that I was seen, I was loved, and I was whole. The world outside might rage with chaos, the wolves might howl with threats, and shadows of the past might linger at the edges. But here, in the embrace of Lysander, with Gaspian between us, I was finally home. We stayed on that balcony long into the night, arms entwined, hearts synchronized, listening to the forest breathe, the moon watch, and the fire crackle. The world beyond the trees could wait. In our arms, in our love, we had everything we would ever need. If you enjoyed listening to this story, please hit the like button, share it with someone who'd love this, and subscribe to Nightbond Narratives, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Tell me in the comments below which part of the world you are watching from. Also, tell me which part of the story you like the most. Compilation of a video of an audiobook takes a lot of time and effort. So if you see any ambiguity, please ignore it. I hope you will appreciate my effort.